So strap on your VR headset because we're about to transport you into the captivating world of Ghosts of Tabor. Welcome to Tabor Radio. Hey, welcome to this episode of Tabor Radio. Today we're joined with Joshy from the Combat Waffle Studio. And I think that this one's going to be real exciting because usually we have people focused more on Ghosts of Tabor on the show. But
this is a treat.
Yeah, this one goes a little bit more into Silent North, which we'll touch on in just a few. But before we get crazy, Josh, do you want introducing yourself to the listeners and tell them a little bit better than I just did exactly who you are?
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm Joshy. I feel like I'm pretty known within the VR sphere because of my start in content creation, obviously before working at Combat Waffle. Former quality assurance lead for Ghosts of Tabor, recently promoted probably within the last couple of months to junior project manager of Silent North.
That's a congratulations on that.
It's a good promotion.
And is that like a position above, or is that kind of like a different, like whole different role?
It's an interesting hierarchy because I'm technically below Mihai by one step. And I know that you guys did Mihai, I believe, 2 episodes ago. But I'm like this weird in between where like Scott tells me to do something, and then obviously like I make it happen for Scott as well. But then Mihai can also tell me to do something, and then I make it happen for Mihai as well. I don't really work too much in touch with anybody from Ghosts of Tabor anymore. Like they're still at the office. I still talk to them. I still know what's going on with the game and the project and the updates and the roadmap. But I don't have my hands in the day-to-day operations of Ghosts of Tabor's development. That would be more Mihai. And same kind of goes for like Silent North, right? Like I have my hands in all of Silent North's production. How like QA kind of, I think Carney mentioned in his last episode, how QA kind of mingles with that is, you know, I'll go talk to Carney. I'll be, okay, I really need a tester over on Silent North today. And then he'll find somebody for me on that team.
And was that because, you know, Silent North like was appealing to you? Was it because it was, you know, the position was needed? Like, was this something you went into and you're like, you know, that type of game, that DayZ type, you know, that appeals to you? Or were you just happy to do whatever?
I mean, I kind of was told actually that I was getting promoted. I got pulled into a call one day as the QA, like I was the QA lead at the time, and I got pulled into a call, and it was Mihai and Scott, and I actually thought I was in trouble. I was like, oh man, what did I do? Why are they pulling me into this call right now? And they actually kind of messed with me a bit. They made me feel like I did do something wrong, and that's kind of like how we all just constantly like play around with each other, and we're always trying to like get each other frazzled at the office. And they're like, hey, we need to talk about like the QA department. Like, okay, well, what's going on? And this was like coming right after an update. I think this was like maybe 7.1 or something with Tabor. And they're like, yeah, it's like, we got to talk about your future with this company. And like, they like sold this as like, I was about to get like terminated on the spot. And then like, you're doing a fantastic job, but we're moving you. How would you feel about project managing Silent North? And I obviously was all for the promotion. But I love Silent North as well. I love DayZ. I have 650 hours in DayZ. I've been playing since the game dropped in 2015, 2016. And that pretty much goes to say with all of Combat. Well, I mean, I was a big Rust player, big DayZ player. I was massively addicted to Escape from Tarkov, and kind of built all of my gaming interests since the early like 2000s have always been just survival gaming. That's what that's all I've played.
So perfect fit for that. I mean, we played Silent North. We played that at Gamescom.
Mm-hmm.
And were you already working on the game back then in August, or is it more recent than then?
No, so I took over the project, and they didn't have any project management at the time. I walked into the project probably 2 weeks before the Gamescom builds that you guys played. And that first, I guess, update under my belt, or that first milestone under my belt, was the technical demo that you guys played at Gamescom. That was like my first push with the team to get something out the door on time.
So that's kind of my visual reference point of the game. That's the last time we touched it. How much has changed since August with the game?
Oh, absolutely significant amount. It's by the day, we're racing for feature complete. So we're making massive strides week after week after week. Every build feels better than the last build that's come out. And there's been a significant amount of content that has been added to Silent North from what you played at last. I know Artie, artificial actor, a fellow content creator, community manager for Silent North. He's been doing a fantastic job on socials. He's shared a lot of screenshots on Twitter, if you haven't checked those out yet. But all of that stuff is taken in game, like in a Quest 3 build. So every staged interaction that you see from his Twitter profile, from the Twitter profile where they're, doing hostage holdups and sharing cans of beans and trading at that motel and the firefighter outfit, and all of that stuff is in our internal builds right now. That is all taken from us playing and play testing. And then he takes a screenshot and it ends up on the Twitter account.
So at this point, you have like full functional multiplayer working internally with it too? Like you guys are playing together?
Yes. Yeah. We are. Multiplayer is working. I'm trying to figure out like how much I am actually allowed to talk about versus, and I'm like, everything that I like is shown in a Twitter picture, I'm pretty sure I'm able to talk about. So
yeah, if it's in the media, you're good.
You don't want another one of those calls where you think you might be in trouble, For real.
Right. But we're in the hype building stage of Silent North right now anyway, in my opinion. So maybe this podcast generates a bunch of hype for the game. So
I think there's a lot of organic hype just from even a year ago. Mm-hmm. And you're right, if you do, especially Discord posts an awful lot of stuff, but I don't know, sometimes I see some interesting things posted. I saw one of someone looked like they were being taken hostage, which that apparently we thought was going to be a thing anyways, where you could.
Can you talk on that? Can you take people hostage?
It was in the trailer. So obviously anything that we portray in our media, we try to make an accurate representation of in our game. So there's some interesting twists and turns that you're going to be able to do with players in Silent North. And Scott's given us a bit of creative freedom on that, which is really cool. Scott is obviously the creative producer. A lot of the stuff is his idea. I would say a vast majority of stuff in Silent North is his idea, but then I can take his idea and then I make it a reality by assembling it in tickets and busting it up for the team to work on, kind of like in a step-by-step process. But then I could think of something like, well, it'd be really cool if like he mentioned this, but let's also make it do that. So there's a lot of like this, then that I will see in the project. And then I'll go back to him and I'll be like, hey, what you presented was a really cool idea. What if we also let players do this? And then he's all for it. And then we end up making it a reality in the project.
Oh, man,
do we get a torture room?
Yeah, I think there's some things that we need to like. There's some ideas we come up with that are so ludicrous, like we have to shelf them. Right? There's no way we can put that in a VR game. But yeah, it's a super fun process.
Yeah, I think it's a very real discussion when Grim, Silent North, and Ghosts of Tabor are all out
at the same time.
Which one's going to be the biggest game? Because they all check different boxes. They kind of appeal to similar players with like survival, but like inside that vastly different niche of survival players.
If the Rust player base comes over to be, if they were like,
I'm on Grim.
Wise,
Grim's my
you're talking
my bet,
but DayZ has also got a massive fan base. So
in that style of game, I mean, like I remember when Ghosts of Tabor came out and people started posting videos on it of interactions with other players,
speaking
robbing them people, and betrayals and stuff like that. And once all that content started to come out of the crazy organic stuff you can do in Ghosts of Tabor, interacting with other players, I feel like that's when it really started to catch fire early on. And I feel like that same thing's going to happen with DayZ. The first time a video comes out of another player, of Silent North, that's same thing's going to happen with Silent North. The first time a video comes out of another player getting taken hostage, the gloves are off. I think it's going to blow up.
Oh, yeah. And I think you get those interactions kind of in tenfold with both Grim and Silent North. I love Tabor. Tabor was an addiction, is still an addiction. Granted, I would say that I played a bit less now that I actually work for the studio, but you're right. You get those interactions in, I would say, a very small dosage in Tabor, because I think players traditionally are there. They're in a raid for one reason. They're in there to kill players. They're in there to get loot. And it's not an open world. Like Granite Island is a relatively large map, and then you have Underground Silo and Maka, but a persistent world such as Grim and Silent North, where it's open world and you're free to explore and you're getting all these players into a map at one time, you are going to find the, Rust style content creators that make, the role playing videos. Same with DayZ. Like you think of a lot of flat screen DayZ content creators, like Mr. Gibbon, for instance, who actually had played Tabor recently. You get these guys that are making, and this is like what I want to do with my own content. You get these guys that go in to the world, they make this story. It has these overarching story points of their interactions with players. And it's like watching a miniature movie in DayZ if you watch some of these YouTubers. And I think we're going to see the same in Grim and in Silent North. And I think it'll be a whole new birth of full-time content creators. You think about Tabor, you have Timeless and Tanvarian and Tweak and all those guys that kind of made their entire content creation careers around Tabor. We're going to see that with Grim and Silent North as well.
Oh, million. I'll never disagree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's any shortage of content to be had with any of the products. So we'll see when those three enter wild, though. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. And I know you got to be careful about what you're able to say. So if at any point I ask something, you go, hey,
comes out when?
Yeah. I prefer not to say.
Yeah. I don't think I could do that at all.
Yeah. What is like some of the other things that you would like to see in the game that you're able to talk about that maybe aren't in yet?
In Silent North that I would like to see
before launch, things that are still cooking, that we can.
That's such a tough question for me to answer too, because I am pretty much the one that is directly responsible for what goes into Silent North and when it goes in. So I'm trying to think of like the things that I would want to see that I can actually talk about.
Well, that's something we can always go back to, but that kind of leaves that. How do you balance, because you got to plan on, like you said, not only what goes in, but when it goes in. How do you balance, what's realistic to do, what's kind of like feature creep, like, like, hey, that would be cool, but that's going to slow down production. How do you balance all of that?
Well, you have to kind of identify what like the core gameplay loop is, right? So, and we have a couple of different departments that are like across. You have like the development side of things, which are like the engineers that are actually coding the game. And then you have the artists who are making all of the props and weapons and items and lootable containers and 3D, like all your buildings and stuff. And then you have like your environmental design that's actually assembling the map. So you kind of have to balance all three of those departments, and you can't have one department that's like accelerating faster than the other. So like if a bunch of artists are making tons and tons of things, but then they're not building the map out fast enough. Or on the other hand, if they're like, hey, we need like X amount of buildings to finish this like one pocket or this one town or village, and like your artists are 2 weeks out from that, then it's just odd. Honestly, it's always just a careful assessment of like what everybody's working on at any given time. But I would say, going back to your question of what I choose goes in and when it goes in the game, a good portion of it is like a democracy. Like I'll talk to Eli, who's the lead. I know that you guys have interviewed Eli in the past. I'll sit down with Eli and I'll be like, hey, what are like the 3 most important features that need to go into the game next? And he'll give me his opinion, and then maybe Logan will give me his opinion, and then we kind of just like pick or choose. Obviously, Scott has a lot of way in there as well, where he'll come downstairs from his office and he'll be like, hey, have Mikkel make this for me. Like, okay, I'll just let him. I don't know what his plan is, but I'm going to have Mikkel make it, and then it'll end up getting into the game, shortly after.
Makes sense. It's kind of a science to it. You gotta be realistic of what's achievable, and also where
and separating personal personal wants versus what makes the most sense.
100%. So like right now it's a big push, like what we're working on, like currently within like last week into this week, we're doing a big push to get completely feature complete of the map. So we're trying to get the map fully done. Things like, gun polish is something that we're always continually working on, making the guns feel better, feel more polished, trying to get that similar like Tabor gun feel. Getting our zombie like AI dialed in so that the AI for zombies feels really, really solid, since it's a very zombie forward game, obviously. Things like that. A lot of polish is happening right now too. A lot of bug fixes.
Seemed very zombie polished in Germany. They had no problem coming at me.
I was popping them. Once you got to get at,
I ran out of bullets, dude.
Yeah,
I ran out of bullets.
Not the terrible game to run out of supplies. So when's it come out and how much is it going to cost? No, I'm just playing. Something that we usually do that we kind of skipped over in this. I think it's a good time.
Backwards. It's good.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about who you are. You mentioned a lot of people know you from content creation. Off air, you had mentioned you've been in the industry for quite a while. So, let's talk a little bit. How'd you get started in the industry? And then we'll talk a little bit about your content creation side too.
Sure. So I originally hail from a little place called Youngstown, Ohio. That's also where Carney is from as well. And kind of growing up, video games, always a massive part of my life. About 2015, I got absolutely addicted to this fascination with creating content. And I think I started on Twitch maybe 2016, 2017 and was streaming. I was partnered on, for those of you that remember, I was a partner streamer on Mixer for quite some time. When I jumped ship through Twitch, left Mixer, did full-time content creation for about a year or two. Got out of that, and I ended up getting hired at my very first game studio, local Youngstown game studio that blew up. It was called Aim Lab, which was a free esports aim trainer for like Riot and Rainbow Six Siege. So I worked in QA at Aim Lab for 5 or 6 years. And while within that, a couple of promotions happened in it. I QA led a couple of projects over there: Aim Lab VR, Aim Lab Mobile, Aim Lab on consoles. And then I was finally laid off, like a lot of the gaming industry, like they did mass layoffs. And then probably about 2-3 months later, I was picked up immediately by SideQuest as a QA engineer for them. And I did about a year at SideQuest before I exited like the workforce for personal reasons. It was right around the time my daughter was born. My wife was like, "Hey, why don't you stay at home dad for a little bit?" And I was like, "Yep, that sounds great. Like I'm gonna push content creation really, really hard while being a stay-at-home dad." Right around this time is when I like got into VR content creation. Which really, I only got into VR content creation because working for a flat screen studio, it was really, really hard for me to make content like playing flat screen games. So I was like, let me get into like a completely new medium and start playing VR games. And then shortly after VR content creation, I kind of was like that variety creator for a while. Like I think a lot of VR content creators start out being. And then I saw Ghosts of Tabor pop up on Twitter one day, followed him. I think the game was super early in development. I instantly DM'd the Twitter account and I was like, "Hey, big Tarkov player, I need to play this. Like, I know I'm a small YouTuber, but like, give me a shot." I think I had like 300 subscribers. Scott messaged me back, and I even before this podcast, I just looked back on like the exact dates. So Scott messaged me like maybe October of 2022, right around the time, like I think it was either just the end of Alpha 1 or just the start of Alpha 2, where Silo was like the only map. There maybe was 5 or 6 guns, and he was like, "Here's your Steam key." So I started playing in Alpha, and I quickly knew that this was going to be like the next big thing in VR. And I was trying to figure out where I kind of fit in that with content creation, and coming from a heavy technical background and being a technical thinker working in QA. And I don't find myself like that entertaining. I was like, so what kind of content can I make? And that was educational. So I instantly started making guides. And some of my map guides, like if you want to go to my YouTube channel and look at like what Island looked like during that beta, if you miss the old house, and if you miss the like I think Carney mentioned his podcast, like at Docks, when you had like shelves in the upstairs of Docks. I did a map guide that ended up getting like 83,000 views or something when the game hit open beta, and that was it. Like, I was off to the races. During that time, though, like I obviously built a relationship with a ton of Tabor content creators that I consider family. I got closer to the development team, and then when the game officially launched into early access, or at the time maybe App Lab, for some weird glitch in the matrix, side quest grabbed the app, or grabbed the listing off of App Lab, and it was listed as free, which obviously the game didn't release free. So it was causing like this massive pandemonium in the Tabor Discord. So I instantly messaged Scott like on their release day, and I was like, hey, I'm the QA engineer at SideQuest. Like, I'm going to fix this for you right now. That's how me and him started talking. And then I guess, right time, right place, right time. I saw that there was a QA position that opened at Combat Waffle, and I had already known everybody for so long. I messaged Scott and I interviewed, and then literally the next morning I got the message. It was like, we'd love to have you on the team.
And how long ago was that
I started
you officially joined?
I started at Combat Waffle. Well, I accepted the position in March, and I started on April 1st. So the running joke is that this is like the longest April Fool's joke ever. But yeah, I started April 1st at Combat Waffle. So I'm under a year still, but I moved down here relatively quickly within 90 days of being hired, and working at the office is, I'd been work from home for probably almost 10 years. So this is my first time having to drive to work every day.
Has that been a hard transition?
It has been a hard transition, but I'll be honest with you, it's a really cool place to drive to work every day too. So
I was going to say, as far as the fun factor, I mean, I know everyone's working hard. That's obvious, but I imagine there's a good level of fun that exists in the office space.
There is. We play a lot of pranks on each other. By the time this podcast goes live, I know Carney will be watching it. So I just want to say, I hope that you enjoyed the fact that we Christmas wrapped his entire cubicle on Friday. Everything. Because he'll see this after he gets to work tomorrow, when me and Scott spent 45 minutes wrapping everything in his cubicle. I wrapped his batteries and put them back in the Quest controller, and then wrapped the Quest controller. So we'll do things like that, but then we'll all do 50-hour work weeks and like work, insanely hard at making sure an update goes out polished for Tabor, or making sure we get that next feature completed for Silent North. So,
well, the one thing about the Combat Waffle team that was easy to figure out earlier, back when we first started playing, was when there's a problem, there is no team that's going to jump on that problem quicker, take ownership of what needs to be discussed, but at the whole time fixing the friggin' issue. There's never a doubt. So it's like, I know that there's been, updates and patches, and it's caused other issues, but each and every time the team just attacks it. So you can see the passion everyone has for the actual product.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, like, when you first started on making Tabor content, you had a pretty smaller following, but then you started making these big videos with the map guide. So is it fair to say, like, your channel grew because of Combat, or because of Ghosts of Tabor?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I wasn't, I'm not even like huge, right, on YouTube. I think I say a little over 4,000 subscribers, about 14,000 on TikTok, and 15,000 on Instagram. All kind of based around VR. A lot of it, a vast majority of it, is Ghosts of Tabor content, though. Yeah, I mean, I would say Tabor is really what did it. My goal always was that like TikTok and Instagram were throwaway content, and like YouTube has always been my baby. And the Tabor content is completely the reason why my YouTube channel was successful at all. And as I said, then getting hired as QA, and you take a shift of now you're playing Tabor 5 to 6 hours a day, Monday through Friday. It became very, very difficult to clock out and then play Tabor for content directly after. So I kind of backburnered Ghosts of Tabor content for a while. And now being on Silent North and coming like out of Tabor, working on it and playing it every single day, it makes me want to go back. But then on the flip side, it's really hard to go back because you know everything that's coming. So to go play like the live version of the game when knowing like, oh man, this cool stuff is coming like X amount of days away or X amount of weeks away. You're like, well, I'm just going to wait till then because it makes no sense. So like, it's very hard to know everything that's coming and then go play live.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to speak on anything that might be coming in Ghosts of Tabor that we may or may not know?
No, I want to say,
not trying to end careers.
No. I appreciate that. I want to say that like everything, like Combat Waffles for the most part always is pretty transparent. Like everything either makes it into the Discord or makes it on TikTok, which those guys do a phenomenal job on TikTok, and then or it makes it on Twitter. I want to say I think everything that's known is known, at least as far as I am aware. As I said, I'm not too pressed into that project anymore, so it's hard to know like exactly what's coming when it's coming. But I think I've seen most of everything on social media by this point.
And the Combat Waffle social media team, they do a great job across all games too. Even Grimm's been really ramping it up with like, you know, how-to videos and stuff. They all do such a good job.
They post some funny shit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Spoon.
Been enjoying Grimm's like social media push right now quite a bit. It's a super fun game. Arguably, that's probably one of the 3 titles that I have spent the least amount of time in, but I'm starting to play it more. It's hard to get everything like squeezed into a night. You know, you get home from work at like 6 o'clock and I have the kids here and then I get all the kids to bed by like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And it's like, okay, what do I want to do for 2 hours? And I just have to backlog and cram everything into 2 hours a night.
Yeah, so, Grimm has taken over us, unfortunately.
I'm definitely a Grimm guy.
And at the worst time of the year too, when there's so many releases coming out and it's like, but Grimm,
it's always in my top row of
everything from the Combat Waffle team is so high level. So I'm excited for players to start to get their hands on Silent North. We start to see more of that discussion because, man, like I referenced earlier, that might be the one that's the most popular, all said and done. I think the potential to work together to get tasks done versus always being, you know, killing each other. But of course, you know, there's going to be a lot of killing each other going on as well because people be people. That's the way it goes. I don't know. I'm so excited for it to be out in the wild.
It's a hard prediction.
Yeah, I'm excited for it though. So how trippy does it feel to go from a game that you made so much content for to now you're, you know, in studio working there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit surreal because like I didn't think I was ever going to work at the studio. Even when I interviewed, like I got out of the interview, I told my wife, I was like, it was a really strong interview. I just don't know like if it was enough, right? There's a lot of candidates that applied to, you know, be the QA lead. And at the time, the QA team was incredibly early. I think Rips was on the team. And then Fox, who went on to find a better job elsewhere. I don't. So like it was those two, and I came in and worked with them, and they were like relatively young, like guys in terms of their QA careers. Neither of them had done any form of QA. Combat Waffle Studio was their first game job, much like Carney. Carney had worked for me and him, and we shipped like an indie game, like a flat screen indie game together, and that was a 2-year development cycle. And that was his first time, like, as a resume builder. I was like, hey, let's make this game so that you have relevant game dev experience. And then this would be his first official, like, studio job that he's worked at. But anyway, I didn't think I was ever going to work for Combat Waffle, and it's crazy that I am now, and then how close I've gotten to everybody, where I hate how cliche it sounds, but I truly mean like Combat Waffle is family. Like often on the weekends, I'm with Scott, my family's with Scott, my wife, my kids, his kids play together. Like he'll shoot me a message like, hey, you guys all want to go out to dinner tonight? Like let the kids get together and play. It really is like just as much in work as out of work. We are a family.
No, you can, and Scott has a natural ability of knowing and seeing talent. And I'll bet anything that time you sent him a message on Discord saying, hey, I'll fix this for you, gets imprinted somewhere in that file cabinet that he has in his head. And, and people who get the job done, don't complain about it, and can perform, seem to do very well in Combat Waffle.
So I got to go a little bit into the cliche questions I always ask on this, but they're so important, especially with somebody like yourself that spent so many hours in Tabor. I love to ask, what are some tips that you would give to new players, maybe the young Timmies of the world getting sniped up and shot down? What are some best practice tips you have for Ghosts of Tabor players?
Oh, best practice tips.
Yeah, you're an interesting one because, sometimes
on both sides.
Yeah, you were a big player of the game before you started working here. So then going into QA, I don't know if there's many people we're going to talk to that have spent more hours in the game besides the OG crew, Scott, Proper D and stuff. So I think you have some good advice you could give.
Yeah, there's a lot. I would say really, first and foremost, know the maps inside and out. Maneuverability will win you more gunfights every single time than no matter how good your aim is. And it's funny, like even in Tabor playtests, like a lot of those guys had never played with me before. So when we would do playtests as a studio, and we would just run full rates, basically, where it was like, okay, we've tested everything we need to test. Let's just test it now as a live environment. So everybody just queues up and it's just a free for all. Oftentimes we'd be in a Discord call and they'd be like, where are you? Because like I rotate like silo underground. I'm constantly shooting, moving, ratting around. So I would say like really good knowledge of maps, learning where spawns are, learning which direction players are going to be spawning in and pushing. And then learning weapons probably be second. I honestly utilize the training range. It's the most underutilized portion of our game. I feel like nobody goes in and actually learns how to properly handle guns, properly shoot the guns, mag palming, just all like really big features that you just don't see happen a lot. I think that's probably it. Good maps, like good map awareness, situational awareness, always be listening. So many kids talk with their bikes. So your mic would be like another fantastic tip. But I would say, yeah, map awareness and just handling weapons would probably be like knowing how. That's what I struggled with in like the very beginning, alpha. If I had $1 for every time I killed myself because I forgot to properly load the MP5s, I would have a significant amount of money.
The gun training doesn't happen because it's like dangling health food versus a big bag of chocolate. What the hell are you going to? No, I'm going right to the chocolate. It's like, I'll get to the lettuce later. And then you get so involved in like, oh my God, what do I got to do? You don't even think for a second to like, oh, maybe I should go friggin' learn how to shoot these weapons first. You're like literally learning on the fly in a lot of cases.
And when you say good map awareness, do you mean like, because me personally, a lot of times if I'm getting kills, it's because somebody's being a dumbass and walking in the middle of the map. Unhidden, in the open. Is that what you mean? Or do you just mean like having a game plan of where you want to go, etc.?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of both. Like having a game plan of where you want to go is probably super important. Also trying not to leave yourself exposed in those open areas. But I mean, even so, like the two content creators that I played with the most and kind of was my up and coming, I don't know if you know them or not, but Mr. Nix and TDVR would be like my two best friends in the VR creation space. And we all played together since like alpha all the way through. And one thing we learned very, very quickly was we would spawn in at a certain point of island, for instance, and the three of us immediately would know probably where every other squad had spawned in, and we would just push those spawns immediately before even looting anything. Clear the entire map, loot everything after. Same with Silo. I know where every single spawn is in Silo. I will clear all of Silo before I open a loot box.
And this is stuff you learned before working for the
yeah,
studio,
this is just
correct?
hours in the game.
Yes, yeah, this was all like pre-studio stuff. That was just from me playing every single day for content at the time.
So yeah, you're going in there for kills too. I know some people.
You're wiping the server.
Yeah, myself, I always say I'm a rat. You know, if I can get a kill, 2 kills in a run, I'm happy. But I'm going in there for loot. It sounds like you're going in there for blood.
Oh no, I mean, I'm definitely going in for loot. I just want to make sure that like no one's gonna rat me. So like if we wipe the lobby and like I'm internally counting like, okay, TD killed 2, I've killed 2. Okay, there's like 2 left plus us. Okay, the raid's empty now. And then start at the top and just work down to the bottom of Silo and just take everything you possibly can.
I get it. Going for the blood to get loot. Still going for the blood first. I love that too. Like, well, if I kill everyone, then all the loot's mine. Then all the loot's mine.
Yeah. Right. Playing solo, I tend to rat a bit more, especially Silo. You can rat in Silo like really, really well. And that's on the flip side, maybe that's a bit of the advantage when I was a QA lead, is because we were in these maps testing so much. I had tons and tons and tons of time to just learn every single like cheeky hiding spot in every map that you could possibly learn. And me and Rips would have like, we would be running through the map. I'd be like, hey, Rips, come here. And he'd be like, I was like, can you see me from this angle? And I'd be holding like the dirtiest angle in labs on Island. He'd be like, no, dude, that's disgusting. Like, we definitely have to try that in live later. So stuff like that. Yeah.
Is Missile Silo your favorite map? I've heard you reference it a few times.
Yeah. So Silo is my favorite map. I don't know why. Maybe it has some weird nostalgic feeling to it because that's the only map that was in like the alphas. Because I don't believe Island came until either closed or open beta. I can't remember which one it was, but Silo was it. So those first probably 70, 80 hours of me playing Tabor, there was only one map and it was Silo. But yeah, I do enjoy Silo quite a bit. It's definitely my favorite. Maybe it's not the best for loot, I guess. The community tends to argue like what the best map for loot is. Maybe it's not the best for loot just from the amount that's actually there, like boxes to open. But it's still my favorite map.
I could totally see it for the nostalgic reason too. I think that's part of the reason why Island
80 hours of one map because it's the only one. Yeah, you're gonna grow an attachment.
Yeah, no shit. You're gonna know it like the back of your hand as well too. But I think that's part of the reason like I'm so obsessed with Island because
that's my favorite.
When we started, it was just Silo and Island to me is like almost an open world game. Obviously, it just for as long as the server's running, but it's just so vast. There's so much to do. It's like there's so much loot in there. That's always been my go-to, but I think if maybe I was a new player starting today, maybe I might be more leaning towards Maka or something like that. It's just I have so much memory on Island, so I totally understand that.
I still think new players probably even like gravitate toward Island as well. Like Island's just an incredibly well done map, and the whole like story, even of Island's creation. I know Scott has like talked about it in a previous podcast and stuff. Like they pushed for Island. Like Island was a massive undertaking for the team to complete, and I think it stands as a very good example of like what the team was able to pull off in a short amount of time.
Well, you referenced earlier, like, oh, I've been here less than a year. The studio's less than 3 years old. You know, it's like that less than a year is a significant portion of their history too. So but things move so fast as well. Like it doesn't even feel like, I mean, when you go back and count the months, like I started in April, but the relationships I had with everybody prior to getting hired and then kind of seeing the development of the game from the outside looking in as just a content creator. And then all of a sudden, like seeing all the behind the scenes and now being a part of that behind the scenes, it feels like we've been doing this a lot longer than we actually have. As a player of the game, 100%. I feel that
the progression has been faster than normal, even from concept to putting it out in the wild and letting people get to play it. It's not technically, it probably should just be kind of coming out in the wild.
Yeah, it feels like it's been out for like 4 years since like 2020, since the Quest 2 came out. But no, it came out late stage Quest 2 life cycle. Like it's been just a wild couple of years for Combat Waffle Studios, and only going to get crazier.
Yeah, it's about to get a lot more wild.
When you have Grim in the wild, like I said, when you have Silent North in the wild, it's every time we talk with Scott, he's like, I'm not hiring past this amount of people, and then we talk to him again,
50.
and it's past that number. It's like that studio the studio is going to just be so massive
For
when
years,
all of those.
dude.
I think I was
You're looking at
28.
years.
I think I was higher 28. So I was still under that. I was still under that 50 threshold, but we're going to be way over 50 probably. I think we already maybe even are over 50. I don't know. I've lost count.
When all three games are out, and who knows what else is cooking in
that's the
the
other part of the
creative
equation.
brains over there. Yeah. I know one time Ray told us he was working on a real-time strategy game that I haven't heard much of in a while, but I know that's still in his brain.
There's a couple of non-Combat Waffle side projects going on, but are from Combat Waffle. Even myself, like I'm working on something right now as well in the VR space, but I'm not going to say anything about it yet because I have to show Scott it before I publicly announce anything, because if he likes it, he listens. But
Are you allowed to say genre?
yeah, so I really I'm kind of an interesting individual because I either only play survival, like hardcore tactical shooters, or I only play like scary, like horror games like Exorcist Legion, or like I really enjoy just like scary games and then like survival. So I'm making a scary game.
Okay. Scary genre is good. I don't appreciate you for that, but scary genre is good.
Horror games in VR hit different, man.
Dude, and they
it's
get better
different.
and better. So it's like
Yeah,
the use of sound, lighting, and actual gameplay coming together is just frightening on all freaking levels.
And I love some of like the crossover to like Walking Dead, right? Where it can be a very scary game, but then it dips your toes in like a lot of the survival elements as well. Like Saints and Sinners is probably one of my favorite VR games, aside from Tabor.
Well, now I'm freaking curious.
I will poke no more, but
now I'm interested. I'm intrigued at the very least. But the fact you say that there's multiple side projects on that just kind of speaks to the fact that like the team is just people that love VR and gaming. You're not going to make a side project in your free time outside of work unless it's just something you're passionate about and you love. So I don't know. I feel like we're like in the early stages of history of the VR scene being written. You know, it's like when in 10 years we're going to look back and be like, all those people that all stemmed from Combat Waffle in those stages. It's like we're kind of living through the calm before the storm. Really, I'm excited for it.
Well, they're going to go down as a true AAA studio in the VR space for real. It's like you just can't look at the numbers of anything, any social media. Look at it.
The Discord
numbers are.
Discord is wild.
Yeah.
I like to pop in there and I always say it, post a message just to see how fast it shoots to the top. Yeah. The activity there is quite a bit. Do you pop in there and engage with the community a lot still?
I do. It was weird seeing it like flip where, you know, originally I was like a partnered content creator. So I had like my, content creator badge flare in the Discord. And then when they switched to like that yellow staff role and I saw like they love anytime anybody from the development team pops in and talks to people. And then I would like drop a message and I'd have 50 like DM requests in Discord. So it's slowed down for me. I try to engage as much as I can. But also like not working as closely in Tabor anymore as well. Like, because they used to know me just as the QA lead. So I would specify a message in there and then I would have like 50 bug report messages in my DMs and I would answer every single one of them. But we weren't really publicly like forthcoming in that promotion for me. So I would say that I feel like a lot of the community in the public Discord probably still see me as like somebody in the QA department. So I've kind of backed out a little bit, but on the flip side, I've been spending more time in the Silent North Discord, which I encourage people to join if they haven't.
Slick plug there. Definitely go check that out.
I got to plug a little bit. There has to be a little plug in there.
No, again, that Discord is going to be the same deal. Like I said, when this thing's out, when people are making content of it, it's going to blow up for sure.
Oh, Silent North,
dude.
There's already hype,
and I know
they're let's be honest, Combat Waffle's media team is also next level in what they do, so they're good at keeping you well fed.
And you mentioned, the community gets so excited anytime anyone from the development team pops in the Discord, and I think that's one of my favorite parts of doing this podcast is being able to have a dedicated episode to each member of the team as we go through it. And like, the way online interactions work, so much of it is you'll know the person, but if you've only ever text chatted,
seen the words,
it's their avatar, whatever they have as their little animated avatar and their username. It's so cool to be able to get, here's this person. And I've seen some people comment like, oh, give us more leaks or like what's coming, but that's not what always this is for. We have Scott on. I'm sure he'll drop some shit that he didn't tell anybody besides himself that he's going to talk about, but getting to be able to know the team like yourself, like Carney, like Mihai, like Mikael, like everyone, like Soul. It's so cool to hear all of your story and the passion that got you involved in the team.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it too. Like, it's funny. I think I watch these for a completely different reason, because then I'll be like, hey, Carney, I watched your podcast, and like I'll kind of poke fun at him a little bit about it. Like, I was like, why did you call side quest sidekick? Did your brain just like, and I'm sure I've made like some slips even at this podcast, but yeah, I watch it for like a completely different reason. I'll go talk to like Patty when you guys did Fierce Patty, and I'd be like, Patty, man, like, and I was like, like give him a little dig about his podcast. So for me, it's for a completely different reason why I watch it. But I do see like, everybody, it's nice to see like we're just real people, making games.
I think, that's something that the Tabor community is so big with what I'll say, a bunch of passionate players. It's important to endlessly say it. Like the developers, they're humans. They're working unbelievably hard. It brings that human side of things out. Like these are,
dude, I love the stories about how somebody went from where they were to working for Combat Waffle. It's always an opportunity that somehow aligns itself. People jump on and they couldn't be happier. It's like there's a formula there, and Scott has shared the recipe for success numerous times for anybody that'll listen, and you can't argue with results. I mean, look at what's happening here.
So just to poke the bear a bit, since you said you like to listen to these to bring some stuff to the team. Let's say you all load into a private server together. Everyone from the team, who's walking out alive? Who's the winner of that? Who's the best Tabor player?
Oh,
Want to start a little internal fire,
Start a problem.
yeah. No, there are some people that are just incredibly good. I mean, everybody that works at Combat Waffle Studio is good at the game. There's some that are like above and beyond incredible. It would be incredibly biased. Like I am one of the top often leaving a raid, but typically before that though, is because I'm extremely competitive. I would always just stack people that I knew also were the best during playtests. So typically I would snag Scott, obviously kind of a no-brainer there. If it's like number one draft pick, so you grab Scott on your team, but toward the end, he didn't really play test with us as much. But yeah, Scott's really good. I'm really good. Eli is also really good at the game. Orbital, or Logan, as we call him. Logan is really good. Carney is good. Rips was incredibly good. Rips was my live buddy. Z-Storm is very, very good. I would say those are kind of the top like players. And then there's some that just don't care, I don't think, during playtests, like Patty. Fierce Patty will come in with like a sling and a Glock and not even wear like body armor at all, and you'll kill him like immediately off the rip in a raid, and he just be like, okay, like I'm good. But yeah, a lot of us we have one rule, like none of us run AP in playtests. Like we could be super competitive, but nobody can run AP because that's like we're in a playtest. Scott can't be trusted, even if he's on your team. you'll like get to extraction and then you'll take a bullet to the back of the head and Scott will extract with all your stuff too.
I'll never forget. I asked Scott, I think the first time we ever interviewed him, like, was there ever thought of being able to go into other people's bunkers? That like, well, you're booted up before a squad, can I go into his bunker? And he's like, no, because then your friends will mess with each other's stuff. And I'm like, I think that's you. I think that's a you thing. I don't know if I'll do that, but fair play. So I've always heard he can put a gun to your head very unexpectly. So
or someone pulling a pin on a grenade or something. Yeah.
Very political
we
answer
do
too.
We do like that a lot in clay tests where it's like we'll be like in a group. For instance, when we redid when Labs got its like facelift on islands, we all were clustered. There's like all 12 of us were like in the front of Labs, like testing standalone performance, making sure like frame rate was stable and stuff. And then all of a sudden you hear a pin in the drop and there's just everybody's flashed in the entire raid. So there's a lot of that, messing with smokes, messing with flashbangs, grenades. There's a lot of trolling that happens too.
I love it. I love the camaraderie, all the
you
ball
don't have
busting.
a good sense of humor. It's not for you.
No. I would love to see some. That would be a fun like little live stream or something like that. All the developers squaring off against each other in a run.
That'd be entertaining.
Yeah, I'd love to see who comes out on top. Nonetheless,
that would be pretty interesting. It'd make for good content.
Yeah. Nonetheless, though, before we wrap it up as well, too, while we got him here, is there anything else you want to ask, Joshy?
No, he's got a lot on his plate. Silent North getting ready, as far as I'm concerned.
I know.
Getting ready sooner than later. Working for one of the absolute best companies in the VR space. But just again, another success story of someone like, look, focusing on content creation and now getting freaking promoted at Combat Waffle. It's crazy to like hear like, no, I didn't go, I didn't come out of college thinking I was going to go work for Combat Waffle or whatever the case. Just damn, you see those opportunities, jump on them. That's the biggest lesson I'll walk away from any interview we ever do is like opportunities present itself. Take advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely. And same thing to you before we wrap things up as well. Is there anything you want to say with the, I guess, to the Tabor community or Combat Waffle community at this point?
Yeah, no, obviously it may be kind of cliche to say like, thanks for playing our game. Also going back to, the reason you do these podcasts and to show that we're real people and stuff, like I think the Tabor community is a very passionate group of individuals and, we're humans make mistakes. Obviously there's bugs in the game that people can get really upset about and they can take out those hostilities on the development team. But I promise you, like, no matter what project it is, Grim, Silent North, Ghosts of Tabor, we hate it way more than you do when something is not going right in the game. So keep that in mind. Like we work very, very hard toward, making a game bug free, or trying to fix the issues the community is having. But no, I want to say thanks for having me on. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, the Tabor community, there's something special. I think that's a good way to put it. Passionate is a great word.
I like
for
the passionate word. I've used that one a lot.
It's a good word for it. It's like, you'd like to think any toxicity comes from a good place in the end, but save any insults or over the top opinions away from the dev team. I don't think anybody, like you said, no, it doesn't bother anybody more than you guys. It rips your hair. I'm sure you guys are all ripping your hair out anytime there's a bug or an issue. So the developers love the game. They want the best for it. Show them that love as well too. They're all human.
If it's broke, it'll get fixed.
Yeah. It 100% tends to be an incredibly fast rate of fixes as well too. So show some love to the developers always. So thank you again, Josh, for taking the time to join us today. I'm excited, of course, for Silent North. Like I said, I played it in Gamescom in Germany. It was a lot of fun. And if you're saying that there's a lot of added sense, like, dude, I got to get my hands on it soon. But now I'm kind of freaking curious about what you got brewing up as well,
his
too.
Own little personal project.
Yeah, I got to hear more about that down the line. So,
a game you can't play by yourself.
Well, VR horror is one that, call me a wuss, whatever. I will not play that home alone. Like, I need my girlfriend in the house, somewhere. No, I'm not about to. There's something about VR horror, man. It hits different. So, as excited as I am for everything Combat Waffle, man, now you got me hyped for your own personal project as well, too. So, maybe we'll talk about that in the future as well. So, to the Tabor community, though, much love to the developers, and as always, stay tuned for next month's episode. Check you out later.